Welcome back to this episode of One on One with Ivan Thomas. I'm your host, Ivan Thomas, and today I have the distinct honor to speak with a good friend of mine, Governor John Carney, for the wonderful state of Delaware. Governor, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. As long as one-on-one with Big Ivan doesn't mean you're going to take me to hoop and dunk over me.
Now you got to cut that out now. Now there's only a couple white guys I know in the state of Delaware that got a crazy jump shot and crazy game. All right, that's you and Kelly from the city of Wilmington. You know what I mean? And you coach for the Stormer Classic, so I know you got some game on you with you.
I used to have some game, and the older I get, the better I used to be. But
we don't use the word older; we use seasoned. You know,
that's
seasoned.
right.
You're like a seasoned young Larry Bird. All right, we know who you are.
That's exactly right. I do love helping the young people, as I did for many years in coaching basketball. I was reflecting on it over the holidays. Usually in the holidays when my boys were coming up, we'd have a big holiday tournament down at Hicks Anderson, and we had some great games down there, lots of fun. And somebody was asking me, it came up when somebody was asking me what can law enforcement do to help repair relationships with communities of color? And I said, look, get involved in sport. It's let them know that there's a different side of, and I've seen it work in the past, and certainly has potential today with one of the bigger challenges that we face.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that, and we all love YouTube, and if you're on YouTube, we see videos of cops stopping the vehicle, right, getting out and shooting jumpers, playing basketball with the kids. It does something. It restores a little hope back within us when we watch videos like that. And I think with Delaware being so small and Wilmington being so small, that if we saw that, if we had that, that would be great. We were also reflecting the other day when DETV, myself, when we started filming some of the police department, interacting during the mannequin challenge and doing challenges down on Market Street that brought people together. And it was one time that we did the mannequin challenge, and we did it during the middle of the day on lunch break, and no one knew each other, right? Cops just pulled the tape out, and people were wondering, what are we doing? And we said, we're doing an event, a project to bring the community and people together. You can join in if you will. And lo and behold, it was about 75 people, just citizens on their lunch break, residents on their lunch break, people just walking through town, and stopped and was interacting with this, the mannequin challenge with the police officers. And that was something that, people really took hold to, and they enjoyed. And especially with a time like this where the police are being scrutinized and citizens are being, scrutinized, and what we're going through, there is a time and a time right now for healing. And Senator Coons spoke on that on my last episode of moving forward, and how do we move forward with the events that are taking place, nationally and right now here in the state of Delaware. How do you feel about healing and what's going on right now? Where do we start?
Yeah, I think it's critical. I think you have to start with getting to know one another better, right? To understanding where everybody's coming from, and to understand the pain that communities of color feel with respect to the history, our shared history with its not such good history, right? It's not very positive. In order to move forward, you kind of have to understand that history so that you can do that. But all we can do now is move forward in good faith, getting to know one another, respect. I think it comes down to respect and treating everybody as you want to be treated. It's kind of the golden rule that we all strive to live by. And what's challenging about it is that we have biases that we don't even think about, that are part of our upbringing, on every different side of the divide. And so kind of understanding, I remember many years ago, now probably 10 years ago or so, the then vice president spoke we've got Martin Luther King, a birthday holiday coming up, and one of the breakfasts. And one of the things he kept saying is, if you're going to treat folks the way they need to be treated, you got to know them. You have to. I think that's one of the reasons people use the expression say my name, say the name. It's a gesture of knowing one another, so that you can treat each other with the respect that everybody deserves. I'm confident, particularly in a small state like ours, that we can move forward and heal those wounds of the past. We have a troubled past for sure on race relations, and going back to slavery and the Civil War, and we were a union state that had slave owners. Not many when the Civil War broke out, but still you had lots of folks that fought were traitors, frankly, that fought on the southern side, and we were a union a state with soldiers who mostly fought on the union side.
Yeah.
So there's, I just, the way I always look at it is, you've got to keep moving forward.
Right.
And I think the best way to do that is to find ways to interact with one another I'm fortunate, blessed as an elected official. I'm expected to be at events where I meet people from all different walks of life, all different religions. I've gone to churches and mosques and temples and you name it. And I've been welcomed for religious ceremonies, for cultural and community events. And so I know the diversity of our state. Not everybody has that. We stay in our little areas, and don't venture beyond those divides. And it's too bad, really. But it's one of the things that I think we have to do, and be intentional about it. Find ways to do it.
Let me ask you this, Governor, because I am fascinated with, you say we got to get to know people, right? I want to get to know you. Governor, can you recall a time growing up, and like you said, we have this unconscious bias, right? Can you recall a time in your life, 10 years old, 11, 12, 13, whatever it was, where you saw race, and then you saw, something racial happen, and maybe parents, or, uncle, whatever, that explained to you, like, this is wrong? Do you have a time like that?
Yeah, I do, actually. I mean, I remember well, my both of my parents are from southeastern Pennsylvania. My mother's from Chester, and my dad from West Philadelphia. And they grew up in a time when those neighborhoods were changing from mostly white, ethnic, Irish like themselves, Italian, Polish, whatever, neighborhoods to what they are today, mostly communities of color, African Americans primarily. Chester itself is overwhelmingly a Black city or town now. And I remember my grandmother using language that shocked me, and that became unacceptable in the house where I grew in with my parents. And so you could see that, kind of blatant racism within the, 1-2 generations before me. Fortunately, I had parents for which that discrimination was just not acceptable. And they made that very clear, that particular word, the word I'm talking about, was just not, not to be ever to be used.
Wow. And
that we were all children of God. My parents were very religious, and therefore deserving the same degree of respect as children of God.
Nice.
But it was shocking to me to hear my grandmother use that word.
Right.
And as a young boy, I was younger than 10, I'm sure. And we went to my grandmother's house frequently, weekly at least, and sometimes several times a week as well. She lived on, I guess, what is the west side of Chester now, on the one side of I-95. When we first started going up there, 95 wasn't finished yet. So you can tell how old that is.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm glad that you took a moment to talk about that, because a lot of people, they know Governor John Carney, right? They don't know the John Carney that that Norman Oliver knows, or your best friend, that worked with you for the longest time and just retired. They don't
Larry
know.
Morris.
Yeah, Mr. Morris. They don't know that side of you, and even talking to Mr. Morris speaks highly of you, and those are the conversations and things that that my audience are probably now looking at you totally different, like, wow, wait a minute, because what a lot of people don't know, and we joked about it earlier about Governor John Carney having a wicked jump shot back in the day and playing ball, but that's what it was, he in Wilmington, brothers and white folks playing and having fun together, in spite of what was going on.
So I was really fortunate in that respect, even though I grew up in Claymont, which at the time was primarily, again, white ethnic working folks. My father was an educator, and he worked in the old Wilmington Public School District, which at the time was becoming increasingly a school district with Black and brown children, and during that period of time of his service was a majority minority district. And when I was a junior in high school and playing basketball, my father worked with Ted Blunt. He ran a summer team of players and invited me to be part of the team, in part because he knew my dad, and so I was the only white guy on the team. And I remember playing a game.
What was that like?
In Baltimore, and we were in this rec center in the middle of Baltimore, and I'm sure I was the only white guy within 2 miles of that place. We won that game, by the way. We had a great team. Kenny Hinson was a great player and became a friend. Actually, he became a really great first tennis player. Never played tennis before in his life. Wow. And a scratch golfer. Sadly, he's developed some health issues, but that experience for me was really an experience in getting to know folks that otherwise, I didn't. I played basketball in high school, so obviously there were players of color on my team, and obviously teams that we played against. But that experience playing on a team, at kind of a traveling all-star team, as the only white guy was a learning experience, and one that I'll never forget. I remind Ted Blunt all the time about it, how appreciative I am of him thinking of including me on that team. Yeah. And then now, of course, and for my own boys, we live in the city of Wilmington, and our boys play basketball at the Y and at Hicks Anderson and Walnut Street Y and everything. And I remember we were playing in one little tournament up at the POW on North Market Street. And after the game, my son, who was quite little at the time, it was a time that a team that was put together for this particular tournament. Mm-hmm. And he said to my wife, I'm supposed to be the only little white guy on the team, because they had invited a couple other kids, and my sons appreciated that experience. And it's just that getting to know one another. That's the first step.
Yeah. When growing up again back then, being the only white guy and seeing discrimination across the line, either way, right? When you was watching the news last week, what did you think of, or what was your thoughts when you saw the white guy running the Capitol with the Confederate flag?
Well, the Confederate flag always sets me off, and particularly the way certain populations revere it and put it out there. Mm-hmm. Because essentially it's a symbol of traitors to the United States.
Yeah.
They were traitors at the time. Yeah. People need to read. There's a great book put out by the Delaware Heritage Commission called mm-hmm. Delaware During the Civil War. I've read it twice. Mm-hmm. And I just reread it in the context of all this. And there were loyalty marches and pledges up and down our state, because we had, particularly in the lower part of our state, we had we had people that were sympathetic to the Southern cause. And ironically, the Democratic Party at that time was the party of slavery.
Right.
And the Republican Party was the party of abolition. And the DuPont company was DuPont's people leaders and the company was very much associated with the Republican Party of abolition and against slavery and pro-union. They provided significant gun power to the union cause, obviously made a lot of money doing so, but one of the DuPonts, I can't remember the name off the top of my head, was awarded the Medal of Honor at Gettysburg during the Civil War. And there's a lot of history there that folks don't know.
Right.
But the Confederate flag is a symbol of pro-slavery, of secession from the Union. And it's not people want to say it's about states' rights. It's about slavery.
It's our heritage. Yeah, it's your heritage. All right.
It's a bunch of crap, frankly.
Yeah.
And so when I saw that, and friends of mine, people of color who, saw it and texted it to me, outraged, and to see that flag flown like it was in the context of that insurrection in the Capitol, the seat of our democracy. It was just a complete outrage to me, somebody who served there on behalf of the people of our state for 6 years. It just was, I'll never get over it. I just will never get over it.
Yeah. When was it enough for you, enough was enough for you to make the decision to send the National Guard to D.C.?
As soon as I was assured that the mayor of D.C. wanted the Guard, I was ready to do it from the start. But you may remember back in the spring or summer, the Department of Defense was wanted to deploy, not call up. They wanted they put a call out, a voluntary call for guards to come around the Black Lives Matter protests and demonstrations. And the president on one of our COVID-19 calls had threatened the governors that he would deploy the United States Army with guns loaded with real bullets, not rubber bullets.
Wow.
Direct quote. And to the streets of our states if we did not do so ourselves.
Wow.
So later that day, when I heard that a call had been made from the Department of Defense for volunteers from the states as backup in Washington, D.C., I made sure we called the mayor first to make sure that this was a request from her as well. And she said no, that she didn't see the need for it. And so we did not send them.
Right.
And so when the request did finally come, and it didn't come nearly soon enough.
Right.
I just wanted to be consistent. We called the mayor. She confirmed that they were needed, and we sent them right away.
Wow, well, we definitely appreciate you for that. It was good to see that Delaware, had that what you did for Delaware with that, and the other handful of governors that decided to send the National Guards out. With again, in light of a lot of state buildings supposedly being under attack the day of the inauguration, how are you preparing for that?
Yeah, we're very concerned about it. We've picked up through our DIAC, which is an intelligence gathering center, the chatter on social media about it, the call to arms, if you will. The first one on the 17th is supposed to be an armed protest for Second Amendment rights, and then the demonstrations on the 20th. So we are very concerned. Law enforcement is having meetings and being briefed by the FBI kind of as we speak. I've talked to General Barry about it. He has 200 guards, men and women, in Washington, D.C. right now. Some were headed down there for the president's inauguration next week anyway. We sent them down because of the siege on the U.S. Capitol. And so they're ready to provide whatever support here. One of the things that we've learned both through our experience last spring, as well as what we saw at the U.S. Capitol, is that you have strength in numbers. You just have to, particularly, when the crowd gets to a certain size and the mob mentality takes over, it's hard to put that genie back in the bottle.
Right. And then on top of it, it's COVID-19, right? We know that at least 4 people that were in the Capitol now tested positive for COVID. I want to change lanes real quick and talk about COVID in Delaware. Recently, you changed the restrictions for COVID-19 now, and can you talk a little bit about the restrictions to my audience on what has changed?
Yeah, so this has been the biggest challenge over the last 10 months since COVID. First case was made public March the 11th, I think it was. And we know very little about how to respond other than in basic public health so-called mitigation measures. Basically, shutting down activity, stay-at-home orders, really kind of blunt force, not targeted mitigation efforts. We've learned a lot from the beginning. We've learned that the hardest thing to do is to strike the balance between allowing some economic activity to occur, people to be able to go out and get essential needs met, and protecting the community at the same time. And so we've followed the guidance of the CDC and the NIH with respect to those mitigation efforts, stay-at-home orders, limitations on gyms, on social gatherings, on worship services, on bars and restaurants, all of that kind of thing. And we had some success in pushing down the initial outbreak in April. We hit our peak at the end of April, and then through the summer, we're able to push those outbreaks down. I think the best measure of where you are is the number of people that are in the hospital, and I say that because the number of people we are testing today is dramatically different than the number we were testing back in March. Yeah. So it's hard to compare the number of positives, the percent positives then and now, right? But who was in the hospital with COVID-19? We hit a peak back in April 27th at 337 statewide in the hospital. Yeah. Our number today or yesterday was like 457. So we're above by a significant percentage where we were in the spring. Right. And we've just been through Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's where people were coming together and, coming into contact with people who are positive, and that's happening all over the country. Yeah. So what we're trying to do is to keep people from interacting so they don't spread the virus one to another. Right. Able at the same time, this is a hard argument to get across because we've learned that school settings are safer. The children do wear their masks, they're separated. Teachers do the same. We don't have as many children in classrooms. They're all facing in the same direction. We keep them separated on the buses as they get there. You can't have everybody. You have to have some people learning remotely. And mostly it's those children whose parents want that and prefer that. And so we've gradually been moving more children back to in-person instruction as we've gradually allowing more economic activity to occur. And hopefully we can strike that right balance, which is what we're trying to do. Because otherwise you got people, we've had unemployment support from, we in Delaware have spent over $1 billion of support, mostly for unemployment, for childcare, for support for businesses, all of that, rental support, training for folks as we move out of this, and now for vaccination, which is our biggest number one priority at the moment.
So for those parents, Governor, that are, scared for the kids to go back in person, what message would you have for them?
They're safer. I mean, they're safer there, unless you're keeping them in the house and you're not going out.
Right.
They're probably safer in the schools. There's not much transmission, and when we see transmission, we can shut things down, faster and with greater knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And they've got to learn. I mean, particularly those elementary school children who are learning to read. I mean, think about it. They've been out of school, thousands of them, tens of thousands of them, for the better part of a year.
Yeah.
They're not going to get, if it's a 7-year-old learning to read.
Yeah.
She doesn't get those 9 months back, right?
Exactly.
So we've got to be thinking about how do we get them, and they're not in every day, by the way.
Right.
We get them in, and then they have off days for sanitizing the buildings and everything. We just have not seen a lot of in-school transmission.
Right.
What we see is out of school social environments, sleepovers at home, having folks over to watch the ball game and have a few beers outside of your household. And then and the biggest problem is there are so many people that don't have symptoms,
right,
but have the virus. That makes it really hard, right?
Yeah.
You have symptoms, you feel like you have the flu. It's easy to say, I'm staying home.
Right.
Because I know I've got the virus. Mm-hmm. If you don't, you're out there spreading it.
Yeah, that was like my mother and my sister. My mother and my sister caught it at the same time. My mother was positive with no symptoms, right? She isolated herself she did like 20 days, okay? My sister had it on a ventilator at the hospital, right? On just hit or miss. She's down home, and like even with her, she has to basically learn how to walk again. Like it really took a different turn on her. Let's talk about the businesses right now, and what you've done for businesses in Delaware. Is it more that you can do? Is it enough that's already been done? What's your take on that, Governor?
Yeah, so I don't know the exact number, but we've done about between $150 million and $200 million in support for a whole range of businesses. Mm-hmm. The businesses that have been affected negatively the most, are bars, restaurants, hospitality, right?
Right.
So we've given them a couple extra hits. The Paycheck Protection Act was federal money that went directly to businesses, to enable them to use that money to pay their employees, to keep them on the payroll.
Gotcha.
Others were put on unemployment, and we supported them with unemployment support.
Gotcha.
Again, and we replenished that fund over $200 million or thereabouts, which will protect those small businesses from a tax increase to replenish the fund, which is really the way it normally happens. We've also put tens of millions of dollars out there for mortgage and rental assistance, lots of overall $1.25 billion of support from the federal government through the state and Newcastle County to support all these efforts.
Okay, cool. It's been just a crazy time, and watching how your office has been handling things and how Department of Labor has been handling things, it's you guys definitely had a challenge in front of you, and some more challenges coming forward. Governor, look, I know you got a lot to do, and I just want to thank you so much for taking some time out your busy day to talk to me and my audience, to let us know what's going on in your office and throughout the state of Delaware. Are you going to inauguration? Because I know, President is your boy. Is your
yeah, no, absolutely. I met my wife. We were staffers for then Senator Biden back in the 80s, and
wow.
So you see, yeah. So I go way back with the Biden and the Biden family, and we are hoping to go as a group of governors. The governors have been invited, as well as the House, U.S. House and U.S. Senate. And I'm really looking forward to that historic opportunity for the state of Delaware.
Awesome, awesome. Hopefully I'll see you down there if I can help me get my press pass, Governor, so I can stream that back here to Delaware. Look, thank you again, Governor, for everything that you're doing. God bless you and Godspeed. This is your main man. I can't even say that no more. This is Ivan Thomas, your host to One-on-One with Ivan Thomas, and you're watching DETV. DETV is the new media company for the state of Delaware, bringing people together, but most of all, keeping you informed to information and resources that are available to you and your community. All right, I'll see you on the other side, and be good, be well, be safe, and be happy.